Hey everybody, welcome to the show Board Game Reviews. This week we've been looking at Hyperborea Light and Shadows. In this video itself, I'm going to give you my final opinion of the expansion and what it adds to the game. If all you're looking for is a quick overview, some sample gameplay, or just exactly what rules this adds to the basic game of Hyperborea, check out the other videos in the series. Come back after the break for my final opinion of Hyperborea Light and Shadow. Now, Hyperborea is a game that's been out for many years. The original game came out in 2014, and this expansion itself, Light and Shadow, has been a very coveted expansion that a lot of people have been wanting to have it brought back into print because the game itself is really good. Now, of course, there were some people in the past who said some things about Hyperborea, but again, there's also people in the past who at one point said that the Earth was flat. All those people were very wrong. Hyperborea is a game that is a very good, great tactical game that is all about strategy and tactical gameplay. And this is one of those games that's going to reward players who are willing to devote a lot of time to learning the intricacies, the details, the tactics, the strategies, and how everything interacts with this game to create a wonderful gaming experience. Now, I originally reviewed Hyperborea many years ago. You can check out the video over here to see my original review of the game. And this is a game that I still enjoy playing to this day. Matter of fact, this is one of those games that I play and bring out with people who have never played the game before. And multiple times I've brought this game out to play with other players, and they've enjoyed the game so much that they've actually gone on to Amazon immediately after playing the game and purchased the game because they play the game properly with the proper rules, and they see how wonderful this game is with a wonderful amount of variety. The way the board changes every time you play the game. Heck, this time I played the game was really interesting. It was all mountains and all forests, which was a really interesting game. I don't think I've actually ever seen that before because you have lots of different tile variety with the swamps, the forests, the basic lands, the blasted lands, everything out there like that. I literally think I had every single mountain in play. And yeah, I had every single mountain in play, which is actually kind of funny. So this is a game that's going to play differently every time you play the game. This is a game that's going to evolve with players, with the skills, the tactics, and every time you play this game, it's going to be a different gaming experience. Not just because you're playing with different races, and again, these are all very asymmetric races, but these are all player races and everything that's going to go together to create a unique gaming experience every single time you play it. And this expansion builds on the uniqueness and the variety and the amount of replay variety you're going to get in this game. Just because, again, we have a game that's giving out much more component-wise than what you need to play the game, meaning that every single time you play the game, you're going to have a lot more variety, different tactics and different strategies to an evolving board that is never going to be the same every time you play the game. Whether it's going to be a game that's going to have lots of necromantic tiles, which means you're going to be sacrificing victory points to get special one-time use powers, whether you may be terraforming, whether you may be just gaining abilities or powers from other races, you don't know exactly what's going to happen every time you play this game because there are so many of these tiles in the game adding variety, and they're not going to be in every single game. You're basically, on average, going to use anywhere from 6 to 9 of these tiles. Maybe possibly 10 of them, depending on what kind of game you're playing and how aggressive or not aggressive or how much you're terraforming. But there are way more crypts and relics in this game than you ever use in a basic game. Just like there's way more basic tiles than you ever use in every single game. Just like now there's a lot more asymmetric powers in the game. Now we have a game with every single race having a possibility of 3 different asymmetric powers, making them play differently, strategically, and also the way they're going to play is going to be different every time you play the game because you're going to choose your asymmetric powers based on the layout of the board, based on the layout of the other players in the game, and based on the different strategy and tactics you want to play every single time you play Hyperborea. Now, Hyperborea Light and Shadows is basically 2 asymmetric style expansions or modular expansions built into one. You know, the very first one, which is going to be the light and the shadow cubes themselves, which add more strategy to the game. These cubes are, in a way, they're kind of a double-edged sword because what they do is they give you more options and more ability to cycle through your bag, but they're also a little bit of a crutch, which makes them a little bit of a double-edged sword because the way these come into the game, this is a game, gotta preface this is a game where scores are very close in this game. It's very common to players to win the game by just a couple points in this game, which means that if you are getting the extra option of the black cubes, which gives you variety, you're giving up possible victory points. If you're gaining the white cubes, which also give you tactical variety, but the ability to cycle through your bag quicker, you're also giving up victory points. So this is kind of a double-edged sword. You have a game expansion, which is giving you more options and more strategies, but you're also having to make more tactical decisions and deciding if the decisions of buying these cubes is worth the sacrifice of giving those very, very precious victory points. I mean, in my sample gameplay, you saw that 2 players were literally separated by 1 victory point, which basically means if one player would have bought 1 or 2 more regular cubes versus getting one of these lighter shadow cubes, that could have been the difference of second place there. That is just how close this game can go. Now this expansion adds on to what is already existing in Hyperborea. This expansion adds on to the ability to future plan, which makes this still a very strategic game, and is also a very tactical game, which seems very odd because most games are either very strategic or very tactical. This game has the unique blend of being able to be very strategic and very tactical at the same time. This is a game where you need to be planning multiple rounds in advance because you need to be looking at your cubes, looking at the cubes you already have out on your tech board, knowing what cubes you have available in your bag still, and knowing what decisions and tactics still are available to you, because also in this game, when you start using some of these different abilities, they're basically locked out. So it's a far planning, a far strategy game where you have to be constantly looking into the future with all your strategies. It's also a tactical game because this game evolves every single turn, because you're going to have a board that you're going to interact with, which gives you immediate benefits and immediate results. And now that's even stronger now that we got the crypts and the relic abilities. And you're going to have these decisions on, do I go for the crypts and the relics? Do I go for the old standby ruin rewards by going the ruins? Or is the board evolving to a way that there's cities I need to go after, or the ruins I need to go after, or my opponents come after me in certain different ways? Is the board coming up and building up a very tight, organized when it comes to movement, or is a very open board which has lots of open tiles that allow different kinds of movement? So this is a game that's very interesting, strategic, and tactical at the exact same time. What the Light and Shadow expansion, though, has allowed this game to be much more, I don't want to say new player friendly, because it's almost, like I said, I want to emphasize this many, many times, it's almost like a little bit of a crutch, and advanced players are going to understand what I mean when I say that. But this expansion has actually allowed the game to be much more digestible by new players, because one of the hard things about Hyperborea is the fact that this is one of those games that you are not going to get the first time you play the game. The first time you play this game, you're going to be overwhelmed by all your decisions, all the fact that you need to be planning your tech trees, the fact that you need to be planning out your cubes, you need to be smartly advancing your techs and making sure that you're not getting tons of the same cube, which is going to lock you and prevent you from having lots of good far-reaching strategies. So this is a game that forces you to plan smart, play it well, learn the way the game works, learn the tech trees, the available advanced technology, and learn all those things. This is one of those games you're not going to understand the first, second, or even play really well on the third time. Well, it's easy to teach, easy to understand the basics of the rules, but to play this game very, very well takes a lot of far-reaching strategies. So what this expansion has done is actually made the game a little bit simpler for new players by offering this new black and white cubes, because what they do is they add more variety and more options for the players and more ways for the players to do the things without feeling quite as hampered. If you're a new player and you can't quite do the strategy of the far-reaching planning, grab a couple black cubes. They give you the option of picking different locations, and you're not going to spend all those times where, well, I got a green cube, I don't need another green cube because I bought too many of them. It gives you the option of giving the variety. Or if you're one of those players who just can't do anything with only 3 cubes, grab a couple white cubes. The white cubes are going to allow you to start doing some bag draws and give you the concepts and help you understand the evolving tactics of these games. These little cubes right here help you learn better, deeper strategies for the game of Hyperborea. But at the same time, these light and dark cubes are actually very powerful for experienced players, because any experienced player will tell you in the game of Hyperborea, the faster you can cycle your bag, the faster you're going to get to a reset phase, the faster you can interact with the map, so the faster you can start doing more powerful and more strategies and more combos in this game to start doing more things to win the game. So a good player can use these cubes to their advantage and take the advantage of the variety and strategic depth that these extra cubes give you, while overcoming the sacrifices you're having to make from lost potential victory points. So you have something that's good for new players, and you have something here that is good for the old players at the same time. It creates strategies on both ends, giving a leg up for the new players and also giving additional strategies for the old players at the same time. And on top of that, along with that, we now have these relics here, which are also going to do something I think is really awesome. I love the terraforming in this game. Terraforming in this game is probably one of the things that I think is probably one of the perfect additions to this game. Now, I would not use the relics and the crypts with the first-time players, because first-time players are just going to be overwhelmed, because we are looking at many more options in this game and just going to come out at other players, and they're going to get sunk because they're not going to know what to do. But for experienced players, this terraforming is absolutely phenomenal. It allows you to modify the board because what you get to do is you get to pick 3 tiles and look at those 3 tiles and figure out which tiles are going to help your empire the greatest. It's one of the things that's actually lacking from the basic game. As a nice home rule that I play with my friends is we actually do a little bit of a draft when it comes to building the map. What we'll do is we will get like usually about 3 or 4 map tiles, and we get to pick one that we are going to make part of the map tile, and then that gives us a little bit of control of the way the map tile is going to turn out without getting the randomness of what can happen sometimes. Because as you see, especially on this map, which it came out right here, this map was almost handed to the green player because their special power was just perfect for this map, and I don't think I've ever seen a map come out like this, and it's actually kind of funny, but it actually worked out perfectly. So you can see how sometimes some of the maps can be a little bit challenging for some of the races or give one race an unfair advantage. But the other end of the spectrum on that, though, is just to let you know that this power can also be pretty darn worthless, especially if you get a map that's full of these kind of tiles. So that's why my friends and I, when we play this game, especially when I play this game with players who play this a lot, we like to draft where we'll grab a couple tiles, we'll pick 3 of them, and we'll say, yeah, this is the tile that's going to be part of the basic Borderlands at the start of the game. And that's how we all play the game, because it's just something we enjoy. It's kind of a nice little home rule. But again, that's a home rule, not a real rule for the game. But what this expansion has done is it's kind of taken that idea from that home rule and allowed the players to start modifying the board. You can do this offensively or you can do it defensively. Whether it means you're destroying tiles from other players, you're just getting too many benefits, or it allows you to start building up walls or barricades or start opening things up and start changing things up. Or you can even do it much more defensively or just give yourself more of your own areas to go out there and explore. That is something you can do, and also allows you to keep on adding more and more of these relics on the board. So that's kind of a cool combination of how we got this. You got these relics and these crypts and this terraforming that adds more to the board. I also like the grand sacrifice that you get with some of these where you have to give up your own victory points, your precious victory points, because 3 of these ghosts is 6 victory points. If you have 3 ghosts, sacrificing 1 ghost to use that terraforming action means you're giving up 3 victory points for 1 terraforming action. That can be huge, which means it's a very strong decision. So you need to figure out if that decision is going to be worth it for you. Again, adding to the decisions and the complexities of the game of Hyperborea. Now, not everything about this expansion is perfect. Now, the first thing I need to mention is that this expansion is really geared towards experienced players. I think the light and the dark cubes are phenomenal, a great addition for helping new players learn the game. But beyond the light and the dark cubes, I would not add anything else from this expansion for new players. Everything else about this expansion is definitely geared for older players who understand the basic rules, the strategies, and the intricacies of the game, which is almost to say, and I hate to say this because it seems unfair, but if you actually want to play this game with new players, go buy a couple black cubes and a couple white cubes and help new players learn the game with that. And then you can just bring in the rest of the expansion right here. Treat this expansion as a truly modular expansion. Just play with the black and white cubes with new players, and then when everybody understands the rules of the game, then start throwing in all the extra rules, like the extra racial powers, the extra relic and the crypts, and the fact of everything that you can do, start terraforming the land and start modifying right here. It's really an experienced player friendly fact or expansion more than anything at all. Not only that, I do have to mention the fact that the rulebook did have some errors that managed to sneak into it. It's kind of unfortunate because I think this expansion is about 5 years now, and some of the rulebook errors that were there 5 years ago, they crept back in again. That's really unfortunate. If you go into the rulebook, you're going to see lots of sections that refer to cube generation. It's actually a cube draw. And if you actually look at the tiles, if you look at, well, I don't have the right tiles out here right now, but the actual tiles themselves actually show that's actually a cube draw, but the rulebook continually references cube generation, which is absolutely wrong. Not only that, there's still a couple rules in the expansion that I am pretty sure I'm playing right, but I'm not 100% sure I'm playing right. And I just pretty much from the understanding of the rules, I'm pretty sure I'm playing right. But again, these are a few things that could have been clarified in the rules themselves. Like, for example, I am pretty sure that there is a max of 4 relics that you can claim. I'm not positive about this, but the rules kind of lead me to believe that the max amount of relics that any empire can claim is 4. There's nothing that specifically says you can't have more than 4, but the fact that it tells you put them around your empire makes me think that that's a limit. So that's one kind of rule that I'm kind of iffy on. I'm not sure if that's exactly the right rule right there. My next question, though, is if your empire is only limited to 4 relics, which I think is the case, what happens if you pick up another relic? Are you just not allowed to pick it up? Can you pick it up as a denial tactic to prevent another player from getting that relic? I don't know, because the rules really don't specify. The rules don't really specify that you cannot pick up relics after you have your 4, or if you can get more, or if that's a maximum for your race or anything like that. The rule book doesn't really specify that. So I'm kind of assuming that 4 is the maximum, and then you can't go and get any more relics. I'm not sure, I think, but the rule book doesn't specify. The rulebook also doesn't have a clarification for the 4 relics endgame trigger condition. Now, I know the designer many years ago, probably about 4.5 years ago, put an addendum to the rules to clarify in the rules that exactly how you're supposed to play with the 4 relic endgame victory condition. And basically what it is, the way it works right now, per the rules, the first person to get 4 relics in their empire brings about the endgame. Well, in a 6-player game, or a game where you don't have a lot of terraforming or anything like that, it's quite possible that nobody can bring about this endgame victory condition, which means if you're playing a long game, which means you need 3 endgame victory conditions to bring out the endgame, and if nobody has all 4 relics and all the relics have been claimed on the board, that means you can't end the game. You pretty much created a game that is not winnable. Now, the designer has said that if that ever happens, if the last relic is ever claimed and nobody has 4 relics in their empire, then basically the person who got the last relic is the one who gets to claim that. But the rulebook never specifies that. That's basically something that the designer said 5 years ago on Board Game Geek. I pretty much have accepted it as gospel at this point, but again, it's not clarified in the rulebook, and it would have been great if that would have been clarified right in the rulebook for all the players. The other option to do here to overcome that, though, is my own homebrew idea, and this is what I like to do because this is the final thing I really liked about this expansion, is I would suggest actually using 4 endgame triggers every time you play the game. Yeah, use only 3 to end the game, but pick 4 endgame victory conditions. That way you can add these in. And now the reason why I like that is because you're going to see that some of these endgame victory conditions are really hard for multiple players to get. Now in the basic game, all the endgame victory conditions, multiple players can get any of them. It's very possible for multiple players to get the same victory condition. It's not quite the same with this expansion though, especially with the kill the last ghost one. Once there's no more ghosts on the board, if they're all wiped out, guess what? This endgame victory condition, you can't claim anymore. This one right here, I've already discussed this relic one right here, but I actually like these endgame victory conditions. It kind of forces the players to play a little bit more aggressively. It forces the players to go out there and explore the world, and instead of sitting back and turtling, they have to actually go back and go after these because it's kind of a race, first come, first serve. And if you are sitting back and not playing aggressively enough, it's quite possible for somebody to go out there and steal these endgame victory conditions, and then you can't get them at all. And again, this is a game where 2 victory points gained, and denying another player 2 victory points creates a 4 victory point gap. And in this game, 4 victory points is a heck of a large gap. That's pretty much a winning gap right there. So that's basically why I have this kind of home rule that when we play the game with the expansion, we pick 4 of the endgame tiles, and again, we only require 3 of them to bring about the end of the long game. The bottom line here, though, is do I think that this expansion is worth it? Yes, I highly recommend this expansion. I think this expansion is absolutely phenomenal for people who are experienced with Hyperborea. It's also good for people who are just trying to learn the game. Again, not to go back to light and dark cubes, but it adds enough to make it for the newer players to understand the intricacies of the game and kind of gives them a leg up while helping the more experienced players kind of work on the strengths of these cubes right there without feeling like they're as big of a crutch. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I like that a lot. I like the relics. I like exactly what they do to the game. I like the variety they add to the game. And I really love the terraform. It just adds one more level to a game that I so greatly enjoy. This is definitely a game that is going to climb up even higher thanks to this expansion in my top 51 games of all time, because this is a game that I enjoy so much. It's a great game. It's designed very well. It's a very asymmetric game, very Euro asymmetric game that plays so great, so much variety, and it's a wonderful joy every single time I play the game of Hyperborea. I do have one caveat though. If you're going to play the game with this expansion though, do not play with everything that comes in here and throw everything, including the kitchen sink and the new players. They're going to be absolutely overwhelmed. They're going to struggle, the new players. They're not going to know what they're doing, and they're pretty much going to drown in all the options, and they're going to lose the game, and they're probably not going to enjoy their experience. Ease the players into the game. Give them the black and the white cubes as an option. Don't play with the relics. Don't play with all the extra race powers. Show the players the basic game. Give them the basic understanding of the game. Then start bringing everything out there to help them enjoy this great game of Hyperborea. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this video series. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I'll definitely get to them as quick as I can. You can also feel free to email me off the shelf board game reviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. I'll answer email as quickly as I can. If you enjoy this video series and you want to help support the channel, think about tossing a dollar tip in the jar over at Patreon. That's patreon.com/OTSBGR. Your support can help keep the channel growing strong. This channel is 100% self-funded, so just $1 in tip jar can really help cover my costs and help me keep bringing out great content for the channel. If you enjoy this video and this video series, click that like button, click that subscribe button. As always, thanks for watching.